If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. Inside Out 2 is a 2024 American animated coming-of-age film produced by Pixar Animation Studios for Walt Disney Pictures. The sequel to Inside Out, released in 2015, it was directed by Kelsey Mann in his feature directorial debut. Amy Poehler, Phyllis Smith, Louis Black, Diane Lane, and Kyle MacLachlan reprised their roles from the first film, with Maya Hawke, Kensington Tallman, Tony Hale, Liza Lapira, Ayo Edebiri, Lilimar, Gracie Liu, and Paul Walter Hauser joining the cast. The film tells the story of Riley's emotions as they find themselves joined by new emotions that want to take over Riley's head. The film would premiere at the El Capitan Theatre in Los Angeles on June 10, 2024, and was released in theatres in the United States on June 14th. The film received positive reviews from critics and has grossed $1.65 billion worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing film of 2024. It is the third largest domestic opening weekend for an animated film and has become the fastest animated film to cross the billion-dollar mark, alongside being the second highest-grossing animated film of all time, the 10th highest-grossing film of all time, and the highest-grossing Pixar film in history. On a budget of $200 million, Inside Out 2 was initially projected to gross $80 to $90 million in its opening weekend. But after making $63.6 million on its first day, projections went up. The film would end up grossing $294 million worldwide in its first weekend. The film's gross then passed its predecessor, which had grossed $858 million, 16 days after its release. And on June 30th, the film would cross over the $1 billion threshold, becoming the first Disney animated film to do so since Frozen 2 in 2019. With this, Inside Out 2 equaled the record of Lion King as the fastest animated film to cross $1 billion, doing so in just 19 days. On July 10th, the film surpassed the global box office of Incredibles 2, which grossed $1.2 billion, to become the highest-grossing Pixar film. And on July 24th, 2024, Inside Out 2 surpassed Frozen 2 to become the second highest-grossing animated film of all time, only behind The Lion King, released in 2019, which grossed $1.65 billion. After the success of Inside Out, the seventh highest-grossing film of 2015, the production team considered a sequel to be inevitable. Inside Out director Pete Docter was germinating ideas for a sequel while the original film's nominations were unveiled at the 88th Academy Awards in January 2016. Pixar officially confirmed the sequel's development during the D23 Expo announcement in September of 2022, with Amy Poehler coming on stage to discuss the film alongside Docter. Kelsey Mann was then announced as the director of the sequel. Mann's first pass included 9 new emotions to make Joy feel overwhelmed with all new emotions showing up, but he felt the story could not keep track with so many emotions taking the spotlight or not adding to the story, so after the first screening he decided to simplify the number. Among these new emotions would have been Schadenfreude, which means having joy at someone's expense, jealousy, and of course guilt. But the latter two influenced the film despite being removed, with Mann feeling that envy could relate to jealousy and how remnants of guilt could be found within anxiety's introduction, even giving anxiety some of guilt's baggage, which was inspired by that of the Disneyland hotels. The production team frequently consulted with author and clinical psychologist Lisa Demure and used her books as guidance on accurately portraying how teenagers' emotions change during puberty. To assist with the development of the film, Pixar enlisted a group of 9 teenagers who were dubbed Riley's crew to provide feedback to ensure it accurately portrayed modern teenage life. The input led to the inclusion of the emotion nostalgia and influenced various scenes, including everyday elements of emotions' lives and the transition from middle school to high school. Initially, the plot for the film was to involve a talent show, but that idea ended up being scrapped. Eventually, it was decided that the story should center around Riley playing hockey, as director Mann felt it was a unique aspect for her character. Mann and lead writer Nielsen also said they were inspired by their own daughters when crafting the film, and used their perspective as parents to help in shaping the film and characterizing the emotions, especially joy. Poehler accepted an offer of $5 million with lucrative bonuses to reprise her role of Joy from the first film. Phyllis Smith and Louis Black also reprised their roles from the first film, with Smith coming out of retirement to do so. Smith even requested that Pixar find her a recording studio in Missouri, as she had no intention of traveling all the way to Los Angeles just for that. Following a dispute over pay, both Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling declined to reprise their respective roles as Fear and Disgust. They and the rest of the returning cast were reportedly offered $100,000 each, equivalent to 2% of Poehler's salary. Later, they would be replaced by Tony Hale and Liza Lapira, respectively. Maya Hawke then was announced to join the cast as Anxiety, a new emotion. Mann auditioned Hawke via Zoom at the office of a backroom in Epcot during a family vacation with his kids, after Nielsen told him that Hawke was available to audition just then. He would say her anxious performance drove him to tears. Now I must admit, I went into this film somewhat skeptical. I'm a true lover of the original animated classic Disney films. I loved watching hand-drawn pictures move before my eyes. And really, pretty much after Toy Story was launched in 1995, I felt animated films sort of went in a different direction. They lost a little bit of soul for me. Don't get me wrong, of course you had some classics like Up and Soul, but overall I have been somewhat skeptical when it comes to watching animated films, as there are so many produced every single year. But when I saw the success of Inside Out, read about it, and wanted to understand the premise, I must say my curiosity was piqued. This is one of those films that really leaves you pleasantly surprised. The story is deep, nuanced, layered, and multifaceted, but it's so cleverly written that kids can enjoy it just as much as adults, but for very different reasons. For kids, it will be the color palette, the easy storyline, the fun, over-the-top characters that will draw them in. For adults, though, it is the representation and personification of emotions that are so relatable. For example, all of us have to deal with anxiety on a daily basis, and the film represents anxiety, voiced here brilliantly by Maya Hawke, absolutely perfectly. Yes, of course, the film is dealing it from a teenager's perspective, but we were all teenagers once, weren't we? So in many ways, like I say, it's completely relatable. It's so clever and original, and the whole time I was watching it, I was just amazed that these creative people have come up with such a fantastic, unique and original idea, expanding upon the first film and really sort of adding another depth of dimension. The use of metaphors and wit are perfect, and the cast bring their respective characters to life with absolute perfection. There's some real laugh-out-loud moments, such clever and witty dialogue as well, for example, the sarcasm in Riley's brain, or even the use of a brainstorm. At its core, it's fundamentally about a teenager experiencing hormonal changes and moving into a new phase of her life. But of course at the time, everything just feels so much larger, bigger, and more dramatic. And this film conveys this absolutely perfectly, with each emotion representing themselves to perfection. The story is fundamentally simple, but it is the way it is conveyed, with a lot of heart, cleverness, and depth that makes it really shine out and stand out amongst all the many animated films that have been released. Poignant, brilliantly written, original, and incredibly creative. I can see why Inside Out 2 has been such a huge success. Inside Out 2 gets a 9 out of 10.